Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Online Smicha. The Hamshach in continuation to last week's topic about Schar Limud, which had a lot of interest. I'd like to touch upon one more Nakuda, and that is the expense, as we mentioned last week, of Schar Limud on certain families is very, very hard. And the question is, how much of a Mesiras Nefesh do parents have to go for the Schar Limud? At the same time, does the school have halachic right just to say, because you haven't paid X amount of money, take your kid and keep him at home? I'm just going to quote the Shulchan Aruch as the Alter Rebbe brings it in Hilchos Talmud Torah. But perhaps it's kedai to start off with the Milsa de Bedichusa. I once heard from a Chassidish Rebbe, he says that, the Gemara says that the Oisiyah Shebaluchos B'nes Hayu Oimdim. The Oisiyas that were carved out in the Luchos, miraculously they were able to stand, because as we know, a Mem and a Samach have nowhere to stand if they're Chakika. They're like a round hole. Yet, if you looked at it, you saw the letters. So the Chassidish Rebbe said, Mem is 40, Samach is 60. What does it mean, B'nes Hayu Oimdim? If somebody is able to survive between being 40 years old to 60 years old, that's usually the time period when you marry off kids, and all the hitzoyos of your chasna you managed, it must be B'nes, you must have gone through a big miracle. You could take that word, that vart, and maybe make it a little earlier. If somebody manages, Baruch Hashem, to pay somebody who has a mishpacha brucha with a large family, and tuition is, Baruch Hashem, big expense. If somebody's able to pay the whole bill, then that's how he has to be thankful and thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because it's a mess, because the expenses are very big. Let's talk about how the Alter Rebbe says this in Hilchos Talmud Torah. There are three Nakudas in Hilchos Talmud Torah, Perek Aleph. Nakuda number one is that from one hand, mitzvahs begin at bar mitzvah. Here, your child going to cheder, he's going at kindergarten, first grade, second grade, he's way before times of bar mitzvah. Is there even a chiyuv? Point number two is, if there is a chiyuv and the father has to pay for it, etc., is the malamed, is the school allowed to charge? It's a mitzvah. You're not allowed to charge for a mitzvah. And point number three is, if he's allowed to charge, what happens if Nebuch, the family, doesn't have to pay as much as the school wants? So I'm just going to tell it to you as it is in Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. So in Hilchos Talmud Torah, Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph, the Alter Rebbe begins and says that even though we know that a cotton is patur mikol mitzvahs, and there is no chiyuv of chinuch min haTorah in all mitzvahs, it's only with the Rabbanan, the exception to the rule is Talmud Torah. The mitzvah of Talmud Torah, there's a chiyuv min haTorah for the father to teach his son. And you have a special pasuk, even though he's way below bar mitzvah. V'limadatem oisem es b'nechem l'daber bam. And the Alter Rebbe goes through the whole stages of at what age, as early as when he begins to speak, he begins to talk. From then already, he has to teach him Torah Tziva, and then he goes Shema, then he goes to Chamesh L'Mikra, and Shemona. As we know the stages in life, how you have to progress in your learning. But one thing we know, that the chiyuv of chinuch for Talmud Torah is different than any other mitzvah. This one is a chiyuv min haTorah that the father has to take upon himself to educate his son. Now, how does one educate his son in Talmud Torah? A lot of people are busy making a parnasa, and a lot of people are not shaykh to teach. So the Alter Rebbe says that it used to be Melichoy Eitzim Melamed Atinoikis. You would hire a Melamed Atinoikis, a teacher, Likris B'Torah Kol Hayoim, Kuloi, and the teacher would teach your children to replace your obligation. And as the Alter Rebbe again says, the steps of what he teaches first, what he teaches second. And the Alter Rebbe says like this: Chol Melamed Tanoikos, this teacher that you hire, Seif Beis, Mutar Litel Schar. He is allowed to get paid. Now the question is, l'chayra, we know that for a mitzvah you're not allowed to charge. Especially the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, the pasuk says, "Va'osi tziva Hashem ba'esahi l'lamid eschem chukim v'mishpatim." And Chazal tell us, "Ma'ani b'chinam," that Hashem says, just like I don't charge for my teaching, af ata b'chinam, So the Alter Rebbe establishes and says, Mikol Mokim Hatinoikai Shehen Ktanim Hein Tzrichim Shimur. There's a service. You're not only teaching them, you're watching them. I don't want to use the word babysitting them. There's secular things, there's behavioral things that you're teaching them. You're watching them, and for that, as the Alter Rebbe says, l'shamram shalayetzu achutza. You're watching them not to hang out in the streets. V'yisasku b'dvarim b'telim. For that, they're allowed to charge. They're not charging for the Talmud Torah. So how about an older bacher who perhaps is already mature enough, he knows not to go outside, not to fall into all the shtusim. So how could a Maggid Shir or Rosh Hashiva of a 15, 18-year-old charge? There's no schar shimur there. So the Alter Rebbe says, if it's somebody that was able to have another job, and he, instead of working in another job, it's nicker that he's taking away to teach Torah, so he's allowed to charge for the fact that he's not getting money for his other job. Now, who pays this money? So here's the very important, touchy topic. Says the Alter Rebbe in Sif Gimel, Schar melamdei tanoikis, the payment for the teachers, Takonos chachamim, hoisel lefroya mikupas hakol. The community has to pay the teachers. Rishua ben Gamel established that there should be melamdei tanoikis in every city for the rich, for the poor. And there is one big pot. The ones who are able to pay as much as they're able. The ones who are not able to pay, somehow there's a trickle-down effect from the Ashirim. And the Kupas HaKol has to pay Ba'ad Kol Atinoikis. B'nei HaAshirim V'Aniyim Yachtav. V'achshav b'medinos elu. Today's days, however, originally there was Kupas HaKol. Today's days, everybody, Kol Echad Pereya Ba'ad B'noi. Everybody takes care of his own son, his own children, im yodei maseges, if he's able to. Umi she'ein yodei maseges, however, somebody who doesn't have enough to pay tuition, chayavim hatzibur lefroya ba'adoi. The tzibur has to kick in and pitch in. This is one of the mas, one of the taxes that a community has to pay, that there should be a teacher for Malamed Tanoikis to teach Torah. But mitat kanas chachamim. The Alter Rebbe says the ones who are not fortunate enough are able to force the rich people to give dues to pay, that there should be the teacher should be paid. So their son who doesn't have enough money, they don't have enough money to pay for tuition, their son should also be taught. And the Alter Rebbe goes on to say how important that the Kol has a responsibility for this. And the Alter Rebbe mentions, in Perkei Avos we say, Hizaru b'bnei aniyim. Don't varfaruis. Don't throw away the kids who Nebuch don't have money, because shemehem teitzei Torah. So if Nebuch there's a situation of people not having money, you can't just throw them out of a school. A lot of poskim use these dinim in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch and from the Mechaber Shulchan Aruch to prove that it's very difficult for a meiser to throw out a child due to the lack of tuition. It's a chiyuv hatzibur if the parent can't pay. Now, what if the parent could pay? He has luxurious other items, and he doesn't find this as important to pay for. So the Alter Rebbe goes and deals with this matter too. And see if Daladi says, Mishi yodei maseges, if the parent does have money, but he ain't a roitza lisker malamed libnoi, koifin oisei b'chol minei kfiyos. Him you force. If you know that parents have money and they're able to survive, they're just carg cheap and they don't find this important, yes, you have to force him in many ways to pay. But if he doesn't have the money, it's a chiyuv hakol, it's a chiyuv for the community just as much as it's a chiyuv for the parents. Now the Alter Rebbe, at the end, the Alter Rebbe concludes that perhaps sometimes the aniyim and the ashirim are moichel each other. But the L'Poyel, we see clearly that 100% there's a responsibility of parents is a chiyuv on the parents to pay schar limud, that the children to learn Torah. But Nebuch, if they don't have, plan B is that the community, the kol, has to pay. There is a responsibility, and to throw a child out because the parents don't have, stimmt doch nicht with this halacha. Yasher koyach, and please join us again next week.
Yo